who actually rules the One Piece world? Is it the legendary pirates like the Yonko who sail the seas? Or maybe the world government's marine fleet, a literal global army that defends the islands of the planet? Or maybe even godlike characters like Enel or Shirahoshi? Well, the truth is, of course, that none of these people even come close. And that's because, of course, the true rulers of the One Piece world are the Celestial Dragons, the world nobles who live on top of the Red Line in the Holy Land, Marijoa. And while for the longest time we thought that these bubble-headed weirdos are just evil people that are slobs, some of them are the most powerful fighters in the entire story. The Gorosei, the Holy Knights, and Imu are just some of the absolute units among the Celestial Dragons. But what if there was one more? I'm talking about Monkey D. Luffy, or should I say Saint Monkey D. Luffy, because I'm about to tell you what absolutely world-breaking events would happen if Luffy was born as a Celestial Dragon. But maybe the most insane thing about this is that this might actually be the truth. I mean, we do know that at some point Luffy's father Dragon was a high-ranking member of the Marines, something that's finally been confirmed in chapter 1097. And we also know that high-ranking members of the world government, like the admirals or vice admirals like Garp, are very much allowed to be inside the Holy Land, interacting with characters like the Celestial Dragons and the Gorosei on various numbers of occasions. And based on Akainu's immense anger towards Dragon, the fact that he's the most wanted man in the world, and Garp's immense power and status, I think it's pretty safe to say that Dragon could have very much been a vice admiral or even an admiral at some point in the story, and so as a result very possibly could have met a love interest up on the Red Line as well. And it may sound crazy since he's so much against the world nobles at this point in the story, but we do know that not all Celestial Dragons are for a fact evil. Characters like Don Quixote Homing or Rocinante are some really great examples of this. And so with all of that considered, if Dragon did end up falling in love and have a child with a world noble, it could also explain why Luffy had to be raised by Garp in the East Blue. That's because he could have very much known that once he turned on the government and the Marines, they would either come and hunt Luffy down for being only half of a Celestial Dragon and get revenge on Dragon himself, or keep and use Luffy as a weapon for their own evil plans. After all, he is the grandchild of the original strongest Marine and would be the son of an absolute force of nature, the most wanted man in the world, so hiding Luffy somewhere in the jungles of the East Blue would be Dragon's safest bet to keep Luffy and also himself safe. And while this could very much be what actually happened in the actual story, for this video we're just gonna assume that that's what happened and go with the idea that instead of betraying the government, Dragon instead decided to stick things out with his wife and raise his son in the Holy Land, you know, kind of trying to fix the government from within. I guess I should actually now call him by his new official Marine Admiral title, the Emerald Dragon Monkey D. Dragon. After all, many important Marines have animal and color titles like Akainu, the red dog, and Kizaru, the yellow monkey. You get the idea. And obviously, Luffy now being a world noble, his training and childhood are going to be wildly different growing up in the Holy Land on top of the Red Line. He'd have training from true top Marines like his father and grandfather, but also some lessons, I assume, from the Holy Knights, which is a group of characters I'll be touching on a lot more a little bit later. But for now, with all the basics covered, we can really get into all of the world-shifting changes for Luffy and the entire One Piece world in this scenario, because as you can imagine, Luffy not sailing the seas totally flips major plot points in the story. Like, for example, very importantly, Luffy of course loses his signature powers. Yeah, that's right, since Luffy isn't in the East Blue with Shanks, not only will he never get his straw hat, but he'll also lose his only chance at becoming the Warrior of Liberation, Nika, which then leaves room for another young man in the East Blue to take up that title instead, Portgas D. Ace. After all, despite Dragon's drastic choice to stay behind, nothing drastically changes to stop Garp protecting Ace for Roger, and thanks to an awesome theory with very solid evidence, there is a lot of reason to believe that Shanks was actually bringing the Nika fruit to the East Blue for Ace, something I've been advocating for years now. In fact, in chapter 968, we do learn that Roger himself in intended for his own son, who wasn't even born yet, to become Joy Boy. And Shanks really had no reason to be going to the East Blue right after stealing this legendary devil fruit from the clutches of the Navy, except for seeing a young Ace, the son of his former captain, possibly. But regardless of that, this is how the story would unfold in our scenario, which means that now we do have Joy Boy Ace roaming the seas and a hockey beast on top of the red line with Luffy, because you just know that having legendary fighters like Garp and Dragon training him, Luffy would be mastering the basics of hockey very early on, even as a kid. And actually now it also does open up some room for something else really interesting to change, because now that Luffy doesn't have a devil fruit, well, he could definitely get a different one. And while we do know that the Celestial Dragons seem to shame those with devil fruits, we also found out in the God Valley flashback that they use rare ones as incredible prizes for amongst their own ranks. Such was the case, for example, with the Pawpaw fruit that later was eaten by Kuma, or Kaido's Azure Dragon fruit, which also got stolen from the Celestial Dragons. And with all of that known, it really begs the question if Luffy would also get a hold of an incredibly powerful fruit that is being hidden away and hoarded by the Celestial Dragons in Marijua. And I do think that the most important thing that would really determine that would be who ends up being his role model instead of Shanks. After all, Luffy's whole devil fruit origin story basically entirely revolves around impressing Shanks. So who exactly would Luffy be trying to impress up in Marijua, and why would a devil fruit help him to do so? I do think the answer is pretty clear. There is one incredibly powerful group among the Celestial Dragons that would of course be the absolute perfect role models and teachers for our young Saint Luffy, the Holy Knights. Okay, let's talk about them. These incredible figures were introduced only in chapter 1054 and act as the elite forces of the Holy Land. And as it happens, the absolutely craziest connection here is that the Holy Knights do actually have a quite deep link to Luffy's original mentor, Shanks, because the supreme leader of the Holy Knights, their commander, is one Saint Figurland Garling, a character we were introduced to in chapter 1086. Why is that important? Well, thanks to Film Red, we actually discovered that Shanks himself is also a Figurland, which will lead to some crazy results down the road. For now though, having a powerful warrior like Garling right in front of Luffy would really inspire him to join the Holy Knights, very much like Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates did in the regular timeline for him to become a pirate. Which ironically enough would probably once again drive his family nuts, because Garp and Dragon would 100% now want him to become a Marine once again. So really, no matter what scenario, it just seems like this kid will not join the Marines, except this one, but that's okay, because trying to impress the supreme leader Garling, Luffy would end up making one of the most reckless choices possible. That's because he decides the best way to win over Garling to become his mentor, proving that he would be a great warrior of the Holy Land, would be by stealing one of their most secret prized possessions, one of the rare and mythical devil fruits. Again, we do know that the world government and the Holy Land both do keep some of the most impressive fruits locked safely away, so sneaking around either Marineford or Marijua, Luffy would definitely find himself in a somewhat oddly familiar situation. He would hear a faint voice whispering and calling to him, drawing him slowly but surely closer and closer to a locked, ancient-looking box, sealed shut with the world government's ancient emblem. And after trying to break it open for many hours, finally he'd find inside a fruit that had been calling out to him. In this moment, Luffy would realize that he has the voice of all things, and it guided him to the mythical zone devil fruit, the Hito Hito no Mi model Susa no Mikoto. Yeah, we're cooking here. He would take a bite of this bizarre looking fruit and suddenly burst with lightning and energy as a great storm gathered around the Holy Lands. Suddenly alarmed by this and realizing what might have happened, Figurland Garling, Dragon, and the Holy Knight squad would rush to the room where this fruit was sealed, seeing a young Luffy uncontrollably laughing and zapping things with his newly awakened Storm God powers. You heard me. I said storm god, as in Susanoo, the legendary god from Japanese mythology. For those of you who don't know, Susanoo is the younger brother of Amaterasu, who is the goddess of the sun and is often depicted as a wild and rowdy god governing over the sea and the storms. How does that make sense? Well, after all, in the regular timeline, Luffy did become the sun god, and we do know from Skypiea that technically there are apparently 4 gods in the One Piece world: the sun god, earth god, forest god, and most importantly for us now, the rain god. And so since the Nika fruit is connected to being the sun god, I think it's pretty safe to assume that the other gods of the past were also devil fruit users, or at least their powers inspired the devil fruits that are modeled after them. You know, like possibly Green Bull's forest logia fruit, and now Luffy's storm god fruit, plus the fact that Susanoo is the younger brother of the sun god is a really nice little call out to Luffy's original place as Ace's younger brother, since Ace is the new sun god in this timeline, may I remind you. And also it's just very on brand for Luffy to get the storm god fruit, as his father, the Emerald Dragon, clearly also uses some sort of storm related abilities with either his immense haki or just a storm logia devil fruit. But most importantly, thanks to this rare devil fruit, the Gorosei are actually forced to take action and now figure out what to do with Luffy. That's because he's now of course an incredibly valuable weapon for them to use, something that the secret ruler of the world, Imu, of course would also notice. And so shortly after hearing whispers of Shanks managing to steal the sun god fruit and giving it to Roger's son, Imu decides to let the rain god block out the sun. That's right, the plan now is to set Luffy up to defeat Ace at some point, which is going to lead to a truly godlike battle, get my drift? But to really get Luffy up to speed here, the smartest course of action is to have Luffy join the Holy Knights and have the great swordsman Garling be his mentor. Now we do know Garling isn't exactly the most gentle person or kind-hearted person, and as part of this intense training, Luffy's going to become a true master of not only his haki, but also swordsmanship. That's of course because, as we learned quite early on, the rubber fruit's weakness is swords. Kaido theorized that would also be the case for Gear 5th, which is why he used air slashes against Luffy in their battle, something that was kind of confirmed in chapter 1093 when Kizaru forms a laser sword to cut Luffy and leaves a quite bloody mark. And Imu clearly having some sort of history with Joy Boy leads me to think that Imu knows this as well and would want Luffy, the rain god of the Holy Land, to be a master swordsman able to cut down the rubbery Joy Boy Ace. Well, which then of course means that Luffy's going to need a sword to match that quite divine title, so how about a couple of supreme blades named after the legendary Susanoo's actual swords, yeah, from mythology? You might actually have heard of these. One is the Kusanagi and the other is the Orochi no Aramasa, the blade that he used to defeat the 8-headed serpent Orochi, who of course the Shogun of Wano is also based on. So to summarize things a little, we've got a storm god Luffy that's become a holy knight and is training to slay Ace, Garb's other grandchild. The story is just getting absolutely nuts at this point, but what's even crazier is what happens when Luffy finally finds out that there are actually fallen world nobles amongst the warlords of the sea. You see, Doflamingo's story plays out very similarly as it does in the main storyline. However, this time the revolutionaries, who are now led by Ivankov, are forced to take the charge, liberating Dressrosa instead. And so when word finally makes it to Merijoa that a warlord is out there causing trouble in a world government kingdom who was a former celestial dragon, leading to a revolutionary presence as well, Luffy's role as a holy knight finally kicks into action for the very first time. Luffy's sent out by Garling to issue some divine punishment on the fallen angel Doflamingo, and in the process also show the world his overwhelming power as well. After all, in a fight against the Master of Strengths, a dual-wielding swordsman with the power of a literal storm god would probably shred Doflamingo into tiny pieces. With blades of lightning, Luffy would easily fly along the wind, slicing Dofi down, and even with the overwhelming power of the birdcage, Storm God Luffy would be a force that just could not be contained, especially by someone as weak as Doflamingo. I mean, let's be real, he could barely handle Gear 4th Luffy, and we're talking about a power that can rival Gear 5th. So go figure. And with the trash now taken out, Luffy would finally have a moment to reflect a little bit on things, because he's finally left the Holy Land for the very first time to see the real world, and Luffy would wouldn't simply be satisfied, right? I mean, he'd be eager to fix the broken world he sees himself. After all, even in his slightly more evil setting, Luffy's still Luffy. At heart, he's a good person trying to make things better, and well, this just would not cut it. And so suddenly, with this newfound purpose, Luffy would set out to make sure that none of the other kingdoms under world government's rule would be threatened as well. A decision that would then lead him to come face to face with the man he has been fated to destroy, Portgas D. Ace. You see, since Ace has been busy fulfilling his own purpose as Joy Boy, liberating kingdoms and people all around the world, by this point he's scoured the world to find his father's treasure, and with Shanks' help has nearly found the One Piece at this point. In doing so, similar to Luffy in the main story, Ace has been able to rally the support of many of the kingdoms that hold the poneglyphs, the map to the One Piece, something that Imu just cannot have happen. Which is exactly why Luffy, the Holy Knights, and the remaining warlords are now sent out to defeat his fleet once and for all. And in case that things wouldn't go well, the world government also sent along the Admirals Dragon, Akainu, and Kuzan, and Ace's secret guardian Garb to assist them as well. And really, I think this legendary battle could only take place in one location, the Kingdom of Alabasta. After all, it's the home of the Nefertari family, a group who have deep ties to both Joy Boy and the world government, with Lily and Imu having some ancient past, but it is also the place where we are first introduced to Luffy and Ace as brothers. In other words, it's only fitting that their final matchup would actually happen right here. The full might of the world government squares off against Joy Boy, Red Hair Shanks, and their allies, the Giants, the Skypians, and the Fishmen. In other words, this battle would be insane, even surpassing the legendary battle on God Valley. I mean, we could see matchups like Shanks versus Garling, the Admirals versus the Giants, and possibly even Dragon fighting the Revolutionary Army. I mean, if they knew what was at stake here, they would absolutely step up to assist the Sun God, especially if Kuma and Ginny are still commanders. However, all of those wild and twisted battles couldn't hold a candle to the climax of this war. The most important fight is literally a battle of the gods, Sun God Ace versus the Rain God Luffy. Their clash literally shakes the heavens as their conqueror's hakis erupts across the battlefield. Pirates and marines alike would fall to the overwhelming will of these two conquerors. The earth would wobble and shake as Ains bounces around, using his rubbery body to unleash blow after blow onto Luffy, grabbing Luffy's lightning out of the sky and throwing it back at him, very much like Luffy did in his clash with Kaido. But Luffy is also a god, and in response, Luffy would let his blades do the talking instead, raining slashes upon Ace as he flies around the battlefield at speeds rivaling that of Kizaru. And I think that this really is the key difference, because unlike everyone else so far in the story that we've seen attempting to take down his Nika transformation, Luffy in this case would actually be hard countering it. Using his swords, Ace would just not be able to hold his own, eventually leading to a moment where Luffy would raise his sword high in the air and go cut Ace down, much like his father Roger. However, it is in this faithful moment at the end of their fight that Luffy is shown the truth of the worlds. Right before cutting his long-lost brother down, he sees Ace's crew fighting their hearts out. He notices that all of the kingdoms Ace has saved are thriving because of his actions, and he's shown the true struggle and despair of the Marines as his own troops are miserable. Everything that Luffy has known up until this point to be true turns out to be actually a lie. And it's here that Luffy finally would put down his blades. He's not like his grandfather. He's not going to cut down someone who simply wanted to change the world. After all, it's the whole reason Luffy is fighting to begin with. So instead, he would extend his hand out to Ace and help him up, stopping their clash and accepting that he has to change and that the Sun God's real goal is something that he can actually get behind. Because in the end, this is still Luffy, even if he was raised in a completely completely different setting, and from here on out, the world would be flipped truly upside down. I mean, who knows how Garling or Shanks would react? Would Garp and Dragon finally switch sides, or would Emu use the Mother Flame to destroy Alabasta and the two gods for good? All I know is that the rain clouds have parted and the sun is now shining through, and a rainbow of hope is all that's left. But if you thought that this scenario was crazy, just imagine what might have happened if we flipped Luffy and Ace's lives all together. I know, you don't even have to imagine, because you can just watch this video right here where I do break down exactly what might have happened if Luffy was Roger's son and Ace was Dragon's, and oh boy, it gets really wild. Otherwise, Shanks, so much for watching. If you want to get this shirt, it's now in the store down below. Grab one, it's cool. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.